I just watched the movie Deadpool and Wolverine. I am a big MCU and X-Men fan, so I definitely had high hopes. If you have seen any other Deadpool movies, you know that they use a lot of crude humor, and right away, that is exactly where this movie starts. There are so many jokes, puns, and insults that keep you laughing from the start to finish. I do love this about the Deadpool movies because it fits his character so well, and it's different than any of the other Marvel movies. Not only were there jokes within the movie, but they also poked at fun at real life events. If you aren't aware, Ryan Reynolds is with Blake Lively in real life. There was a time in the movie where he makes a joke about Blake not liking something sexual that he did. There was also a reference to Will Smith and his interaction at the Oscars when he said to keep my wife's name out your... So there's a lot of humor in this movie. Another thing that was pretty cool is the reference to other characters in the MCU and X-Men series. I personally feel it's always fun to see a bunch of characters. And not only do they bring in characters from other movies, but they also had a ton of returning characters from the first Deadpool movies. Some of the big characters are like Blind Al and Vanessa. They also had characters in the movie played by big names such as Channing Tatum, Jennifer Garner, Wesley Snipes, and even Chris Evans, but not as Captain America like we've usually have seen him, but as Johnny Storm from Fantastic Four. The other thing that I thought was really cool was starting to bring Deadpool and X-Men into the MCU multiverse. They haven't usually had much association to the MCU, but I am curious what the plan is for them now that they've been introduced. The last thing I'll say was good about this movie is the subtle references to other movies these characters have been in. There was a scene that they started playing one of the Greatest Showman songs, and even though it was for a quick second, it was just funny because it referenced to Hugh Jackman. They also showed a quick reference from Les Miserables, and they even involved Mad Max while being in the void. So there's a lot of pop culture references. And although there were a lot of good things I liked about this movie, I do feel like there were a lot of things I didn't like as well. I will say I thought this movie was a bit confusing for the first 35 minutes or so. It starts out with Deadpool fighting the TVA in the woods with the remains of Logan's, but then it flashes back to his ordinary life and we catch back up with the TVA. And although that is easy to follow, we just don't really know why the TVA is around. The next thing isn't necessarily a total negative, but this movie is definitely not made for kids. There were a lot of crude jokes and gory scenes that I feel just went too far and saturated the movie. To be honest, it was actually distracting. I feel like the dirty humor was more repetitive and so it got old after a while. I actually read where there was a deleted Mickey Mouse joke because it was too explicit and the Disney CEO requested to remove it. There was so much fighting and the gory and bloody scenes were just way too much and even gross sometimes. It was like we couldn't get away from it. So I personally think they went too far this time compared to the past movies. So overall, actually not too many negatives, but I think these negatives had a lot of weight in making this movie not as enjoyable. I do think this is a good movie as long as you're prepared for that crude humor and the gore to be there more often than not. I thought the ending tied up the movie pretty good because of the emotion they brought to it. I think we can all say we have fallen in love with Ryan Reynolds, but also not to forget the way Hugh Jackman has built the Wolverine character over the last 24 years in a countless amount of movies. There is a funny joke in the movie from Deadpool that Disney will now use Hugh until he's like 90. Now that Deadpool and Wolverine are integrated into the MCU, there could be a lot more crossovers with other characters and many more movies to come. I hope they don't stop here, but as for the future, I currently don't see any more Deadpool and Wolverine movies, so only time will tell. Overall, I think this movie is a must watch, especially if you've loved the other movies and something more action-packed. Deadpool and Wolverine actually broke the box office as the highest grossing rated R film of all time, earning over $1.34 billion. I think because of Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool character and bringing Hugh Jackman into the mix, it definitely brought the hype. But in my opinion, I don't think the hype and the box office success matched the quality of the film. I do recommend taking the time to watch this movie. I just wouldn't go out of my way to watch it and just to make sure no kiddos are around. Go give it a watch and let me know if you think it deserves the credit it got. Also, leave a comment on what I should review next.